Is my routine good enough? Is it hard enough? Does it work? Creating a fundamentals routine or a warm up routine or whatever kind of routine does involve a little bit of planning. I would suggest using your routine part of your day as a method for checking in on everything you need to, but hopefully also warming up because I like doing my routine first thing in the day. I find that most trumpet players around me do the same thing because a lot of times, first thing in the day, we don't have anything going on compared to when the day gets later. Also, by doing a routine first thing in the morning, we're able to make sure we're lined up, ready to go, and checked in with everything we need to so that if we need to play in an ensemble later in the day, or we have a gig, or you want to do another practice session, you're ready to go. So, what do you include in a routine? The point of a routine, in my opinion, is just to check in, maybe make a slight adjustment, and then move on. It's like a mission checklist for launching a spaceship. Yes, there are things to check off to make sure they're working, but it's not the time to disassemble the entire rocket. Once you've got the basic idea of what you want to include in a routine, find some exercises. Luckily, across your trumpet career, you may have come into contact with a lot of great exercises to include for every fundamental concept that you would need. I'm a big proponent for using things that you're already familiar with because then you don't have to learn a new exercise. You can take an exercise that you already know and start taking a deeper look into how you're doing it and how to execute it even better. In my personal routine, I like to include a large variety of exercises, but I always like to start with things that get me physically warmed up. For me, that actually includes a little bit of stretching before I start. I'll make sure that I'm loose and limber, and that way, the physical nature of trumpet doesn't get interfered with by maybe being a little bit of stiff or tense before I start practicing. After I stretch a little bit, I'll start with the basics, with sound production. For me, that involves free buzzing, mouthpiece buzzing, and slow playing to make sure I can integrate those all together and maintain good form. After that, the road's wide open in terms of what you include. It could be things like flexibility exercises, articulation, volume exercises, things that have to do with response and the ability to do air attacks. At the end, maybe even we're doing pretty wild and strenuous exercises like things that have to do with range or very complicated flexibility drills. At the end of the day, there's a lot of different ways to create a routine. I think there are just about as many routines as there are trumpet players out there. So it's up to you to decide exactly how you want to do it. A good idea would be to check in with your friends and trusted colleagues to see what they do. That can always be a good guide for starting. But at the end of the day, it's your routine and it's your trumpet playing. If you can detect maybe some areas that you don't have much consistency in, or some that are hurting more than others, maybe those are the things you want to start including the most in your routine. After a while, you may find that adjusting your routine is necessary. I certainly have. Over the course of time, you'll find yourself getting better at some skills and maybe not needing to touch in with them as much. At that point, maybe find another weak spot and substitute an exercise for that back into your routine. Remember, routine work is just about getting a little sip, a little taste of that technique, making sure that it feels great and it works well, and then moving on. I highly recommend separating your day into a couple different chunks, one of which is a chunk that includes routine, but then another chunk which includes fundamental practice, where you take a much deeper under the hood dive into these fundamental concepts. The question may come up, is my routine good enough? Is it hard enough? Does it work? Those are kind of interesting questions, but at the end of the day, just look at the results. If you have a steady baseline that you know you're performing at, you can start a routine and see what changes. If it changes for the better, then you're probably on the right track. Keep making adjustments as you feel you need, and over time, you'll find what works the best for you, and what things you need to keep circling around to every single day to make sure they stay on track. When it comes to routines that have been made by other people, there are many, and there are many very famous ones. I can think of the Bill Adam routine as one of them. Many, many people have done the Bill Adam routine from start to finish as their own personal routine and had it work quite well. There are many others like it, and I think that for better or for worse, if a lot of people have been using them and finding success, that might be a great place to start. That being said, again, all of us are different and have different skill levels and things that we need to be working on. So don't be afraid to depart from an established routine if you feel like it's necessary. If you're searching for new things to use in a routine, you can turn to method books. There are numerous ones out there from a plethora of authors, all of which I'm sure have good information in them. It's up to you to decide what's going to work best for your routine, and I highly encourage trying out as many as you can. Every day I'm finding new exercises and twists on some old ones that I love incorporating into my daily work. It's important to note that within every method book is a bit of nuance. There are a lot of method books out there that have wonderful illustrations and descriptions on how exactly to do the exercises. One of those that I really love is the Thompson Buzzing book. It's full of literature, explanations, and a full write-up on how each exercise should be performed and what the goal is every time. However, there are also books like the Stamp book that have very little to no explanation on how to complete the exercises or what the goal is. For some of these books, they were meant to be accompanying a student to the lesson of the author of the book, where the author could then explain what their book means and how to play it. But unfortunately, some of that information has been lost to time. So, whenever you do find a new method book, or look up a book of etudes, or anything like that, take a deep guess into what each exercise was meant to be for. If you can uncover that piece of knowledge and discover why exactly each one of these exercises was made, you can utilize that much more strongly in your own practice. Lastly, you may find that between different technique books or books that contain different exercises, they may contradict each other. Understand that there are plenty of opinions out there in the trumpet world, and that many of them are true, many of them are false. A lot of people try to say the same things, even though they sound contradictory. Understand that there's nuance with every routine and every exercise, and I find that even some that on the onset looked very contradictory all lead to the same fundamental truths about how to play trumpet. There are some method books that have withstood the test of time and been handed down through the trumpet millennia as being universally great resources. Those books include the Arbens Method, the Schlossberg book, the Clark book, the Stamp book, and the Chickowitz Flow Studies. Those are great resources to start with if you're unsure of where to go.